across the street. I felt so unsafe going and shutting my gate. They're calling our dogs out onto the road.
LIEnette called the Levy County Sheriff, the deputies, the police, the popo, the law, yet again. And I wasn't even in Otter Creek. Let's set the stage for what just happened. LIEnette contacts the Levy County Sheriff. Now, the Levy County deputies have already determined that street deputies will not be going out to Otter Creek for any issues with LIEnette, Jeremy Hales, What the Hales, Crook, George, you name it. The only individuals that will be sent out are supervisors. Now, in this situation, most supervisors just sit behind the desk. Now, this is going to become important information once I share the actual report with you. And I'm going to share the phone call with you and all the information in regards to this. So, as many people already understand and know, Judge Craig DeThomasis has a temporary injunction on me, which the term temporary means it has an ending point. But yet there is no ending point, which number one makes it illegal. Number two, he has illegally kept me from accessing all of my property. And most of my property has access from the front of the road on North Otter Creek Avenue in Otter Creek. Particularly where LIEnette and Crook stalked me to Otter Creek. They bought 1.66 acres right across the street from my 70 plus acres. I don't know, roughly 75 now, somewhere in there. Not important. The important part is I can't access my own property. I can't even drive on a public road, and no judge has the authority to keep anybody from driving on a public road. So there are things happening on my property I've yet to see. There are things going on that I know nothing about. There are people on my property that I can't even go and enjoy and fellowship with. But apparently, LIEnette feels that she can do anything as she calls the Levy County Sheriff. Let's listen to the call right now, which is public record.
Hi, this is Lynette Preston out in Otter Creek. I just got home from the store, and Brett and Treese Granger, along with Shane, whatever his name is, are across the street. I felt so unsafe going and shutting my gate. They're calling our dogs out onto the road. John went down there to open the gate just so that I could drive in, and they're standing there recording us. They're taunting us. They don't need to be doing this to us.
No problem. Let me hear with Lieutenant Anderson's extension.
Thank you. They're not allowed. Sheriff's out. She has to give me to Lieutenant Anderson. We don't even get police protection anymore.
Okay, that's the phone call made to the dispatch. And Lieutenant Anderson is the actual lieutenant who's taking all of this seriously now. That Norian, I believe is his name. And they're in charge, and they've made the mandate that nobody goes out to Otter Creek for any of these issues except for supervisors on duty. Now, the challenging part of that is these supervisors are not used to going out to places and dealing with things such as that. They're used to desk jobs. The only supervisor that is not allowed to go out is Tom Martin, the husband of Amanda Martin, the mother of Rhett the Rat Cunningham, who assaulted me in barbecues. Now, you hear LIEnette with the dispatcher saying, I just got home from the store. They're calling over my dogs. So apparently, I'm not even in Otter Creek. I'm in Ohio. Apparently, Madam Mayor Therese is on my property, which she's more than welcome to be. I'd invite her on my property at any time, all the time. And her husband, Brett, is on the property, which she has every right to be. He's welcome on my property. Now, she's mentioned Shane. I believe she's talking about Travis Willis, and he's welcome to be on my property. Now, what's going on my property, I have no idea. But I do know that there are individuals who have actually filmed what was happening on the property. And you heard LIEnette state, I just came home. Right. Okay, so she just came home, yet her dogs are not on her property. They're on my property. And she's claiming she feels very unsafe. How is it that she feels unsafe with Brett, Therese, and Travis? Oh, by the way, Deanna was there as well. I do know that because I'm going to show video footage from Deanna of her being there, even though I wasn't even in the state at this time. And she's claiming she's very, very afraid. She's so scared. Yet she's with the man in paperwork, in court documents that she claims has abused her over and over and over and over again. And yet she's never ran to the courthouse to get an injunction. As a matter of fact, this is what she's had to say and post publicly about John Crook and their animals. In another of her massive rants, huge, massive rant, and this one in response to Angela Gleason. She goes on to state, it's huge, but, geez, oh my goodness. Angela Gleason says, on what grounds was your site taken down? Well, let's be very clear. LIEnette's never had a site, okay? Making a Facebook page isn't a site. When you have and you own and you operate your own website, then you have a site. So LIEnette goes on to state these things. Angela Gleason, they said that the page with just pictures of dogs has been on there in a year, so I don't know what anyone posted. If it don't show me anybody posted, they said it went against community standards. Now, LIEnette has no less than 13 Facebook pages that I'm aware of. One of them was taken down. This is what this conversation is about, and it's about dogs. It's going to become very important what she has to say about Crook to Angela Gleason. And she says, it was pictures of my puppies. Other people's posted pictures of their dogs. It was a site for dogs. And then she says, I have no clue. I haven't been on there since my dog was hit by a car. Okay, let's take a look. Did she say it? She absolutely said it. I haven't been on there since my dog was hit by a car under my or above my finger on the road with their skull crushed, eyeballs popped out. It's just ridiculous. Insanity. As if anybody needs this posted on Facebook, right? And her jaw broken, and it was quite horrifying. I haven't been on there since, I don't care about the page. I cared about the pictures, and I lost all the precious pictures of her baby Bella. All right, now let's see what she had to say. Now, she says, baby Bella, John let Precious, I can't read backwards. John let Precious out when we lived at the Granger's campground. Madam Mayor Therese and Brett. Remember, they stalked us to Otter Creek. They did exactly what we did. We stayed at the campground in Otter Creek before we got on our property. How did they know what to do? Well, they watched What the Hales. But remember, in court, she told Judge Craig Thomas, I've watched maybe 3, maybe 4, 2, maybe 3 episodes of What the Hales. Yep, okay. So John let Precious out when we lived at the Granger's campground, and he forgot that we let the dogs out. All right there. He forgot we let the dogs out. Okay, so it was John let them out, and now, it's that he let the dogs out. Precious went to the highway, which is right there, and she was right there. You can see it. She was unalived. And then she goes on to state, Bella, he rolled over. She's talking about Crook. Bella, the mom, he rolled over on her when he was sleeping and she was in bed with him. So Crook rolled over on another one of their dogs and unalived Bella. Okay, as if any of this information should be posted on Facebook anyway, right? He was much heavier at that time. He broke her back having to put her to sleep. Okay, so which is it? Did Crook break her back? Or did Crook actually unalive her? Because right now I'm seeing she was killed or baby Bella rolled over on him. So she's blaming Crook. Here's the crazy thing. She's blaming Crook on one going out to the road and playing and getting unalived. And then she's blaming Crook on the other dog because Crook rolled over on the dog and broke her back having to put her to sleep. So I have neither of those dogs in my life. To lose that page means nothing, but to lose those pictures meant everything. You would think that losing Crook would mean something in her life, as she's claimed so much that he's so abusive. And yet, he's still in her life. Why? Well, how could she play the victim card if she didn't have somebody to blame it on? If she didn't have Crook to blame everything on? If she didn't have Jeremy Hales to blame everything on? If she didn't have... Wait, would she blame the child? Oh, yeah, well, she already is blaming the child. So these two have a history of letting their dogs roam free, which brings up another question. If LIEnette had this incredible, beautiful turtle and tortoise rescue before she ever came to Otter Creek, where were they? She sold the home in Northport that she lied and said was paid off, which it was not. There was a mortgage of $60,000 on it. It was paid off after it was sold. I have all the legal paperwork. Where are all the turtles and tortoises when she goes to the campground in Otter Creek? Are they in totes under the camper? Where are they? The world, no, the planet wants to know where all of these reptiles were hidden at this point in time. I don't know. Does anybody else know? Who knows? But what we do know is they have a history of neglecting, abusing, not caring for animals, such as running out in the road. And on this particular day, John Crook let 2 dogs out on the road as well. Now, these are dogs that earlier her best buddy in the whole world, Jamster, stated that she was going to try and unalive. Not Jamster unaliving them, that LIEnette was going to unalive them. And who's LIEnette to call the Levy County deputies to take up more resources? Not just a street deputy, the supervisors from the office, who are the only ones that will be dispatched now, which I am going to share the official report with you. But before we do, let's see exactly what Jamster had to say about these dogs that were on my property. Jamie Starr Johnson goes on to say, what I did when I was there was try to help care for the animals. And yeah, I offered my point of view and suggestion as well. And I looked at other options for animals. Look, I did want to grab Tilly and run, but you see, that's illegal. And I'm not going to jail over stealing a dog. Even her bestie, who are no longer besties, they met on the internet in anti-CPS Facebook group, wanted to save the animals once she actually got onto this property. Let's not forget about what LIEnette said during Ohio court with a hot mic when we were on break. You remember the aspect of her in the camper, which she illegally should not have been there. The judge constantly telling those two that everything is being recorded and can and will be used against them in a federal court case. And this is what she had to say about the dogs and John.
A coyote had our dogs. A coyote had our dogs and was ripping them apart. They were screaming. You cannot let them be outside alone.
Let's go back to the dispatch call, because this is extremely important, because the real truth, side B, the Golden Key of Otter Creek, is actually filmed. So pay attention. Here we go.
Hi. This is LIEnette CROOK in Otter Creek.
Don't skip. This is important.
I just got home from the store.
This is important.
Brett and Trace Granger, along with Shane, whatever his name
We're going to
is,
see from both
are across the
perspectives.
street. I mean, I felt so unsafe going and shutting my gate. They're calling our dogs out onto the road.
Okay, right there. Did you hear it?
John went down there to open the gate.
Let me
so that I
turn
could
it off.
drive.
They're calling our dogs out into the road. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to show you exactly what happened, because many individuals filmed what happened. So before we debunk LIEnette and her constant, habitual, pathological lies again, let's take a look from, how about we'll go with Shane's point of view, and then I'm going to show you the video clip from Madam Mayor and Brett's point of view. You tell me, Were they calling LIEnette's dogs over to my property, or were they being responsible residents and caretakers and stewards of my property and animals and trying to get them to go home?
This is dog attack in front of Tubetown. Another vicious dog attack in front of Tubetown. What do we got here at Tubetown? We got some loose dogs in Otter Creek. Imagine that.
You know whose dogs those
But they're
are, don't
cute.
you?
I think they're LIEnette's.
They are.
Are
Yeah.
they?
Yeah, they both are.
I didn't know. Go home, buddies. Go home.
Go home.
Go home, babies. They're so pretty.
What conclusion did you come up with? Because I heard Madam Mayor Therese tell the dogs to go home. I heard Deanna tell the dogs to go home. Never once did I hear anybody calling LIEnette's dogs. Now, if her dogs are on my property, I have every legal right to do whatever I want with her dogs. Now, I can't even legally, this is the crazy part, legal or illegally. I'm being withheld illegally, even though I have a legal right to access all of my property. I can't even get to my property to take care of things. So I've already told anybody else on my property, if their animals are on my property again, they will maintain with me for proper care, since they are not cared for by Crook or LIEnette. And it's evident and it's obvious. And not only that, LIEnette claiming that she was so scared and they're calling her dogs over. This is the same dog that she told Jamster she was gonna unalive because it was unaliving the guinea hens. And now all of a sudden she wants to use county resources with supervisors to call the law, as they say in Florida, on people, on guests, on visitors, on my property in regards to me. You realize I'm not even in the state of Florida at this time. I'm in Ohio. What she's trying to do is trying to get some type of contempt of court on me. Well, and yet she's the one that is releasing the hounds to my property. Now, Crook obviously was left in their care. Oh, that's right. If he can't take care of dogs, why does she continue to leave a toddler in his presence for hours upon hours upon hours in a vehicle? I don't think that child is safe with him at all. As a matter of fact, she's already talked about, she let one go into the road. He turned over and crushed another. Not to mention, he has domestic violence charges all on his record. How could this be safe for anyone, let alone any animal? And who in their right mind is gonna call the Levy County Sheriff and utilize their resources, or waste their resources when they are at fault trying to get me in trouble when it's all on video? You're not going to believe, I promise you, you are not going to believe the police report. And I'm going to share it with you. But first, we all know Marla Hughes in Bronson, the person who has not been away from her house in who knows how long because she's so large she physically can't remove herself. Now that's her own issue, and I'm not making fun of large people who have medical issues who can't remove themselves from their home. I am making fun of her because I have every legal right to. When she claims she doesn't go to Otter Creek anymore because the YouTuber might film her at her favorite fishing spot, which is trespassing. Anybody who fishes over at Otter Creek in this known favorite fishing spot is not government or county or town property. It is privately owned property. And she doesn't not go to Otter Creek to not go fishing anymore because of what the hails. She doesn't go because the woman is so large she can't physically remove herself from her home to actually go do anything. And what does she do all day? She creates drama and controversy on Facebook, and the local residents can't stand her. Frankly, I don't even think she likes herself. This is what she has to say. Oh, by the way, anybody who doesn't use an actual picture of themselves has some serious self-esteem issues. And I realize that this woman is not right in the head. She has major self-esteem issues. She has major psychological issues. And birds of a feather always flock together. Successful people surround themselves with successful people, which is why I don't hang out with LIEnette and Crook, which is why LIEnette and Marla love to talk online. And yet they've never, ever met in person. So what does Marla have to say about this entire situation, this gross misuse of county funds? Well, she goes on to post publicly, MP, I'm gonna guess Michelle Preston, even though that's not her legal name, it's LIEnette Preston. And Preston, this is the crazy part, Preston isn't even her legal last name. Nor is Michelle. She put the two together and started using it for more cons. It is not her legal last name. Michelle, or MP, and JC, meaning John Crook, called the cops on Brett and Therese. No, they called the law on Jeremy Hales, hoping to incriminate him somehow, some way, even though he wasn't even there that day, for calling the dogs out into the road. I guess so she could claim they're vicious and or promote her. Vicious dogs need to be picked up by animal control that she started with Don Sweet Little Mutt last week. All right, well, Don Sweet Little Mutt has bitten children in Otter Creek. It's not a sweet little mutt, and it needs to be contained and controlled. And if it can't be contained and controlled, it should be removed. End of story. Period. Done. I got a feeling if some animal bit Marla Hughes' grandchild, she probably wouldn't be too happy. Probably say, you know what, that dog needs to be put down. Oh, but that's not the situation here, is it? When she says that LIEnette and Crook, which, by the way, Marla Hughes is participating in third-party contact on behalf of LIEnette and Crook, which breaks the civil protection order. More on that to come. But when she goes on to say, so they could claim, and they were calling, they were tolling. What's tolling? I don't know what tolling is. I mean, I know what toll. Come on, don't do that. I don't exactly know what tolling of a dog is. But what I do know is LIEnette has publicly stated that Crook has already released the hounds, and they have unalived, and he's rolled over and killed them. Now, what's he going to do with a child about the same size as one of these dogs? Listen, I know it. You know it. Crook is irresponsible. He did not take care of these animals by any stretch of the imagination. And LIEnette comes in, and now she wants to play victim of guest on my property. This is what Marla has to say? This person who has no love for her own self because she's pathetic. She is a horrific individual who has nothing to live for except creating drama in other people's lives in the surrounding area. And so, can't go fishing in her favorite fishing spot. Can't physically remove herself from her home. Period. Okay, so it goes on even further. Let's see what else is said. So once Marla Hughes has all that to say, there are more people that have things to say. Now, I could put all these screenshots right here in the video, but I'm just going to read it to you. Leah Davis goes on to say, Marla Hughes, once again, the dogs have been secured in the camper or the house / shed thing. It's not a shell thing anymore. It's a shed thing. Would still be on the owners if the dogs left the property. I understand him wanting to open the gate for her. Oh, that's not an issue. The dogs were already over there before LIEnette ever was coming down the road. I understand him wanting to open the gate for her, but he knew there were people out there. If you have friendly dogs, put them up. Don't even make it an issue. Leah Davis, you're a genius. What you're saying is be a responsible pet owner. Your animals should never be on other people's property if they are privately owned animals. If they're wild animals, such as pigs, pigs are wild animals. They're going to roam wherever they're going to roam. They're going to go wherever they're going to go. For example, there are wild pigs on my property. Do I feed them? Yep. There are deer on my property here. Do I feed them? Yep. And they go to other properties. Being a responsible pet owner, make sure that they're not destroying or annoying other people on other people's property. Now, the guests on my property were neither annoyed nor was anything destroyed. But if they come to the property again, I will be keeping them and ensuring that they have the best life ever. Because there's one thing that's true. That's not a rescue over there. Every animal needs to be rescued. LIEnette herself has posted how many animals she's unalived and he's unalived. Let's see what the actual supervisor had to say about this phone call. I have the full redacted version right here, okay? And here's what we're going to have to determine. And help me with this. Is it incompetence based on this supervisor or conspiracy on this supervisor? And you're going to understand what I'm talking about in just a minute here. So it says summary up at the top. It says complainant stated that her neighbor across the street is harassing her. Took report. Number one, the neighbor was in Ohio, nowhere near across the street. Now, there were guests on my property minding their own business, being harassed by her animals. That's the reality of the situation. So let's go on and see what else is in here. We've got longitude, we've got latitude. We've got approving supervisor, Lieutenant Anderson. And Lieutenant Anderson is the one who has made the mandate in Levy County Sheriff Office that only supervisors will be showing up for anything in Otter Creek in regards to this. So interviewed, it says interviewed John Michael Crook. And then it goes on to then state LIEnette, Michelle, Lacey, Alexis, and it goes on and on with the names. All right. Oh, it was a cellular phone call. All right. Cellular phone. Let's get down to the meat of it. Page 2. All right. Here's the narrative. This is Sergeant Hoochin, Houchin. And trust me, he's got plenty of chin for the Hoochin. This man has not seen the role out on the streets in quite some time. And frankly, I'm going to say it the way that it is. They should be embarrassed. They honestly should be embarrassed. I'm all for backing our enforcement, but our law enforcement actually has to be able to react and act. And this individual is in no physical shape to actually do any of those things. And so I'm going to call it the way that it is. There should be standards, and the standards aren't being met. So I'm going to read this whole thing to you. You tell me, is it incompetence? Is it incompetence on the sergeant's part, or is it conspiracy? Because some really crazy things happened here. On 4/24/2024. Oh, excuse me, you know what? I was in Florida, but I was not over on the property. I believe I was at the schoolhouse maybe, or wherever this happened, I was nowhere nearby. Nor was I ever interviewed or talked to by the sheriff deputy. On 4/24/2024, at approximately 16:11 hours, I was dispatched to North Otter Creek Avenue in reference to complaints of harassment. I made contact with the complainant named LIEnette, Michelle, Lacey, Alexis, Preston. Sex, says female. Oh, just that word. Oh! How in the world did 7 men, how in the world did anybody give her dollar bills? I will never understand. Hold a second. Let me gain my composure. I almost lost it there. Date of birth, 8/5/1962. LIEnette stated that she wanted named John Michael Crook Sex male. Hey, ladies, he's single. She's made sure that the judge knows that she's single, he's single. You can have Crook all to yourself. He doesn't wear underwear. And male race, date of birth, 5/27/1964, to speak with me first. So LIEnette calls, and she wants Crook to speak to the supervisor first. That's what this report is saying right now. Crook stated that Preston was arriving home, and he went out to the gate to open it for her. I don't know how often you open a futon to let people in, but this was probably not one of them circumstances. LIEnette was nowhere near around when the dogs were on the property. She comes in afterwards. So I'm sure you grasp that this is all lying, okay? Crook stated that Preston was arriving home, and he went out to the gate to open it for her. Crook stated that while doing so, the neighbors across the street started calling his dogs, causing his dogs to run out to the gate, and he had to call them back to the yard. I'm curious, is this the same lie they told when the dog went out to the highway and it was... Is this the same lie he told when he rolled over onto the dog and... Is this the same lie she told when she wanted to unalive Tilly for killing the guineas? I can't even understand the mind of insanity because I'm not insane. Although, don't worry, Marla understands them. So, at least there's somebody that understands them. So it goes on to say, listen, you already know, nobody across the street was calling these dogs. The people across the street were telling these dogs, go home. Go home. Politely. All right. Causing his dogs to run out of the gate. That's interesting. So Crook's not responsible for letting the dogs out by opening the gate. It's other people are responsible on another piece of property that are responsible for his neglect and dogs running onto other person's property. And once those animals are on my property, they're mine. That's the law. Period. And he had to call them back in the yard. And you can hear Crook yelling. Crook stated that the dogs got back into the yard when the neighbors did it again. Oh, so now this happened multiple times? Okay. John stated he finally got the dogs back into the yard and put them in the house. Well, let's break that down a little bit. Number one, there is no house. They do not own a house. They are in a shed. A shed. And number two, the dogs went back because the individuals on my property said, go home. I know. You're thinking the same thing I am. Those dogs were trying to escape. That was their one chance at a real life. Next time. I promise next time. And this report goes on to say, I then spoke with Preston, who advised she was arriving home when she observed the neighbors at the end of their driveway. None of these individuals own this property, and he did put possessive there, T-H-E-I-R. They don't own my property. I own my property, and nor was I on my property. As a matter of fact, I'm the only individual who owns the property. George doesn't even own the property. I own the property. George hasn't paid for the property. I paid for the property. I own the property. I was not there. Madam Mayor, Brett, Therese, Deanna, George, it doesn't matter who's there. None of them were there as the owners of the property. I'm the only owner, and I was nowhere in sight. So this is all wrong, completely and totally wrong. Now, I don't emphasize that George isn't an owner just to emphasize that George isn't an owner. I emphasize it understanding that this is all completely, totally wrong. It's bogus and wrong. All right, so he goes on to say that the owners are at the end of their property, which, no, I wasn't. And owners is plural. And I'm not a plural person. I'm one person. I'm not LIEnette. I don't have multiple personalities or 39 aliases. Okay, Preston states that Crook had come out to open the gate for her. Preston stated as she was approaching her property, she started recording as the neighbors, one of whom she identified as Brett. Brett's not a neighbor. He doesn't even live in Otter Creek anymore. started yelling at her. That's interesting because nobody's seen any of this footage of Brett yelling. Not a single person has seen any of this. You would think that with the way that she uses her pages to debunk. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. She has now determined that she only uses her pages for Jesus things, even though she keeps putting New Age occult things on her pages, which makes no sense to me whatsoever, except that she's stupid. So Brett isn't anywhere near being a neighbor anymore. He doesn't live there. He's just visiting on my piece of property. And started yelling at her. Preston stated that she had her window up and could not make out what was being said. How in the world can you state that Brett is yelling at you when you can't say this is what he yelled at me? When I state that Crook said, suck my quack, whatever you want to put in there. I know exactly what he said. Okay. When Crook's yelling at George, stop filming me, which he has been found guilty of contempt of court. I will get to that. They're both found guilty in contempt of court in Ohio. I will get to that soon, I promise. And they have more contempt of court charges coming. So Preston stated that he was approaching her property. That's odd because he was on my property. But even if he was in the road, it's a public road. He can approach, he can go anywhere he wants. And there's no a trespass order on him for being on the property. As a matter of fact, they invited them on the property so many times, they wanted Brett and Therese to actually clean their property for them instead of them taking responsibility and doing it itself. All right. She had the window up. She could not make what was being said. Preston said Preston then showed me her recording, which also did not pick up any noise or any voices outside her vehicle. Oh, so now LIEnette is hearing voices in her head. Okay. So the sergeant literally says there's nothing. Nothing was going on at all. Preston then showed me her recording, which also did not pick up any noise, any voices outside of her vehicle. I advised Preston that I would document the incident and provide her with a case number. So there's a case number now on me because she called the law on her dogs on my property. Do you understand the insanity of this? At this time, no infractions of state laws occurred. The incident was recorded on ICV, and this is where the controversy comes. The incident was recorded on ICV. Now, so everybody understands, Levy County deputies do not have body cam. None of them. They don't record with body cam. You have to ask yourself the question, why? Because it's not only accountability for everybody else, it's accountability for them. Frankly, I mean, that's the only reason I could come up with. They all need to have body cameras on for my protection, for their own protection. And why don't they? Because they don't want people to know what's going on. It should be legally mandated that they must have body cams on. They will have sound recording when they go out on call. They do not record phone calls. That is not appropriate unless they are telling those individuals they're recording phone calls in the state of Florida. So the ICV is the sound recording that they wear on their actual vest. However, the body-worn microphone was malfunctioning and was muted while indicating it was recording. So no audio is available. Seriously? No audio is available from this whole interaction with LIEnette and Crook. No audio. So this is either a supervisor who's been behind the desk way too long. His physical appearance is not one that it should be to be in a law enforcement. And is it incompetence? He doesn't know how to actually use the equipment. Or is it conspiracy? He didn't want it recorded because he knew it was going to be on What the Hales in the first place. Major, major issue if you ask me. I have a major issue that Levy County deputies should all have body cams recording video at all times. And then he goes on to say no biographical information for Brett could be located in RMS, and LIEnette could not provide any biographical information for the subject. Case cleared with report. You can't find any information because they don't own the land. I do. and their animals were begging to be rescued, and now there's a case against me for what they did here yet again in Levy County.